Been there, done that, know what's next. Life's a journey, never complex. A lifelong student, educators call. Guiding future, standing tall. Conscious parent, tinfoil hat on tight. Drove through decades, walked away for rights. From the motion pictures to the cosmic light. Contactee's journey, universal sight. Attempting to put the human back in humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Human experience, hang out, come along. Kids, health, synaptic circle, singing our song. Random vlogs, life stories to tell. Each journey a beacon, wishing well. We all have incredible tales to share. Healing activation, spreading care. Light the way, find the others. What's your mission, sisters and brothers? Attempting to put the human back in humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Rise, humanity, unity we seek. Community sharing, synaptic circle unique. Be the solution, with someone today. Assist in the rise, light the way. May the song lift whoever comes across, and may you do the same, no matter the cost. Spread the light, ignite the flame. In unity we rise, forever reclaim. Attempting to put the human back in humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence.
Hello, howdy, and hello. Greetings and salutations from Los Angeles. This is episode 43 of the High Vibe Human Experience Hangout. I'm your host, Heidi Pop, and I love to have high vibe conversations with folks sharing their human experience, folks walking the walk and talking the talk, and we build community. So hello to this sweet little community chat. I see you guys there. Bigfoot Dwarf, Gerald, Jane, all you folks. This community chat is how I met my guest today, actually. My chat was referred to him, and then we started talking, and I started seeing him in other chats and connecting on his channel. And here we go. So ladies and gentlemen, John Billingslea, a.k.a. Latchkey Hustle.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yay, absolutely. Well, right before we went live, I have to share, folks, each time I've seen him, well, the couple interviews you've done, and then when we've talked, I thought this was a green screen. This is his backyard. So yay, you guys got a little dose of LA with you today.
Yep, there you go. And, also, I might as well just say this now. These glasses are not exactly my look, but it's funny. I got these because of like the whole blue light thing. Like I'm dabbling in that, right? And so, but I also have synesthesia. And so I have always been able to smell not all the colors of the color spectrum, but a lot of the colors have a taste and a smell to me, because my wiring is just, I don't know what happened, but I have it. And so I got these glasses for this separate blue light thing, and then I put them on, and the world tasted and smelled better. It affects, obviously, the color with which I see things, and it's much more palatable to my daily life. And so, much to my wife's chagrin, I wear these a lot. And
hey, that's really neat.
I'll wear them out in the world, and she's like, honey, and I'm like, what can I tell you? Like, because sometimes I'll look at a color and it's just kind of gross, and so these help that quite a bit. And so, I'm wearing
Wow. Well, that's the first thing we learned about you, because that's pretty interesting. That's kind of cool. I actually didn't know that would help, I guess, with your other senses. What's the grossest color?
It's ironically the grossest color and the most enjoyable color are both shades of red.
Oh,
Like,
and then you're wearing, that's
like there's a purple red that is around a lot during Valentine's Day, and it's kind of gross. But then there's more of a what is the scarlet?
Scarlet
Like
red. Oh yeah,
that
intense.
that I can taste in the back of my throat has a taste, and it kind of not tingles, almost vibrates, and it's good. It's nice. It's you know.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
and then blue and purple both are very particular. And so those are generally the three. And I think I don't know what to make of the fact that those are the three, since if you mix red and blue, you get purple.
Mm-hmm.
So
It
part
could
of
be
me is
there.
like, well, I guess it makes sense, but a lot of the colors don't resonate with me at all in this way. But those three are pretty particular, and for whatever reason, these glasses really assist with that. So you know,
That's really fast. Wow. I didn't know that about you, and I didn't know that in general, really. I'm curious now. Now that I think about it. I know drivers wear yellow a lot because I know it helps with the glares and driving. But yeah, those
yeah.
blue blockers, we really need that help, don't we? So that has double the power for you.
Yeah, it was like a win-win.
It's
And
a
for the
win-win.
longest time, I didn't know that there was a name for it, and I didn't really talk about it a lot growing up. I mean, I mentioned it to my parents, like, "Oh, what's that smell?" And it'd be a jacket, like,
Wow.
but otherwise, that's not really something you announce, right? I mean, it's like
Right.
my
Yeah, yeah.
wires are crossed, I'm not gonna go
Wow.
publicizing it, so.
So you were a kid with this. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
okay.
I've had
Okay.
it for as long as I can remember. And the funny thing is, I thought everybody did because, when you're younger,
Yeah.
your experience, you just assume everyone's having the same experience or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something I said to my sister,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Oh, like that's gross." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, like that color is just yuck. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like,
You're like,
"Oh,
"I taste it."
yeah, I guess it's not everybody." So
Yeah.
whatever.
Do you have the one sister? You
She's my one full blood sister. She's
okay.
the one in the logo with me. And
Okay.
then we have some like half siblings and stuff since my parents divorced and both remarried. So I have
Okay.
kind of like an extended family in that sense.
Oops,
But
there you go. There's your dad. See, I'm learning how to pull it up. This is Bo Billingsley. This is John's father. And so they had different families, you said. But you'll know him from Star Trek, everybody, and a million voiceovers. So he's a voiceover king, I think. Um, yeah,
yeah,
that came up a little quick. Sorry, I'm learning how to do this.
that's cool. No, I didn't see it, but I'm glad you were able to pull it up.
Oh, you can't see it on there. It's his IMDb. So there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he's
I'm
he's
getting it.
definitely been around and in the mix for a while. He actually has
Yeah.
a really interesting story, if you don't mind me sort of getting into it.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's bring
Yeah,
him back
because
up.
I
Yeah, and
mean, it
then
dovetails into my story, obviously, because he's my
okay.
dad. But
Okay.
um, so he's from Connecticut. He's from back east, and um, he was an athlete and also like a class clown. And so he played football at UConn, University of Connecticut. And then when he was done playing football, he went to law school there and became an attorney. And while he was going to law school in Connecticut, he was driving down periodically on the weekends, driving down to New York and auditioning for commercials and stage plays and things like that. And
Oh, wow.
so then he graduated law school and took the bar, the Connecticut State Bar, then got drafted to go to Vietnam, but also landed a job as an understudy in the Great White Hope with James Earl Jones. All of that happened at the same time, and so
Wow.
he and my grandfather, his dad, basically negotiated with the draft board and said, "Listen, I don't want to go somewhere and kill people, but I will practice law for the government. I am a patriot and I have a
Mhm.
law degree. So if you rewrite my orders, I'm more than happy to do this." And so they rewrote his orders and sent him to the European theater. And he practiced law. He was JAG. And I was born in Frankfurt, Germany because of that.
Whoa. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's where it comes from. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was in Chicago touring with the Great White Hope. when he got his bar results, when he passed the bar in Connecticut. So that's kind of a cool little thing. But
Wow, that's a very
even,
cool thing. Yeah.
even in Germany, while practicing law, he was doing stage plays and things there. And so that
Okay.
class clown thing when he was little, and that kind of that bug never left. And as a litigator, you're doing some degree of performance in the
Oh,
courtroom
yes.
also, obviously. And so
Mhm.
yeah, and then
Wow.
eventually we came back stateside and moved to the Presidio, which is up in San Francisco, right at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. And we lived there. He practiced, and then he got out and decided, you know what? I'm done being an attorney. We're going to Hollywood. And so we packed up and moved from the Presidio to an apartment, uh, like on Ivar Street, north
Oh,
of
no
Sunset.
way.
Yeah,
From that to that. Wow.
yeah. So that's how I got to Los Angeles from Germany.
Okay. Okay.
And
Wow. Well, you moved from Germany, you said when you were 2? So you're in the San Fran Bay Area at
yeah,
2. Yeah, and then you just came
yeah,
down here, so you're born you really yeah, you're
yeah. Like
technically
that.
raised in LA, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I've kind of I feel like I've grown up, done most of my growing up in Los Angeles in the LA
Yeah.
basin and the San Fernando Valley. So
That's
um
where I've been, yeah.
yeah,
Well, and how we connected, through tragedy, really. It's the fires that happened earlier this year, January, and, someone sent you my way in my chat, and Blazer and our friends, we started sharing our GoFundMe. So your mom and your
yeah,
stepfather, it was their home that they lost in Altadena,
right.
correct?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And Blazer was great. Everybody
Yes.
was great. Gerald, Jane, Glenn, Bigfoot Dwarf, everybody was so supportive and helpful and
Yeah.
reposting that link. And
Yeah.
it served its purpose. It was a stepping stone. It wasn't a money grab. And so once they got through the woods, they're out of the woods. I was basically telling people, please don't post it anymore. Like I would
Okay.
rather people donate money to other people. Like it served its purpose, and the
Gotcha.
stepping stone worked.
Yeah.
And the community was just so great in that regard. And like I was just saying, I grew up really with my dad and my stepmom Cecilia. And
Okay.
but when you're in such close proximity,
Mhm.
you go, you visit, as a kid, our generation, you split holidays, you go to one house, then the other house. And so I didn't grow up in Altadena. I didn't grow up in that house, but
Mhm.
I am part of the family and I would
Sure.
be there a lot and stuff. But certainly the way we connected was through tragedy, but it was also serendipitous because not only the name of your show, but it was like each time I heard you talk and you were talking about vibes, and even Jane, when she signs off and she's like, keep your vibrations high. I was like, through these sad events, I've like found my people.
Ah, yeah.
Like,
Nice.
oh, like this is my tribe. Like these
Yeah.
folks are speaking my language. And
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been really cool.
That is the beauty of social media. I mean, sure, we're in the same town, but would we have crossed circles? Our paths have crossed? They happen to online in these great community chats and stuff. So thanks, community.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
s
Thank you all very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I have been super fascinated with I mean, your eyes on the sky, you usually catch a lot of UAP, UFO, like questionable things a lot, but you also have this health wellness journey. So I'm curious about all of it. So, if you want to
Okay.
start with the vibrations there, like what's your journey like with health? Like
Sure.
I know we're going to go through we have some photos and videos, but also I'm just curious about your lifestyle in that
Yeah.
sense that got you to the point of understanding vibrations and frequencies and things.
It's a great question. And it's a great question because, as you know, we all have our own path and our own journey, right? And it's interesting because, harkening back to my dad and my stepmom, Cecilia, as a little kid, they, in the 70s and 80s, they um, like supported my belief in the fantastical. They never
Same.
squelched that.
Yeah.
And it
I
was,
get
in fact, it was the opposite, because my dad's parents were believers and practitioners of civil mind control with Jose
Ooh.
Silva.
Ooh.
And so I grew up believing that mantras work. I grew up believing that visualization is a key part of manifesting. I grew up believing that manifesting, like you're in charge of your future. All these things that seem sort of, for a lot of people, are kind of out there concepts or a little woo or whatever. That was like my baseline.
I love it. We have that's similar. Yeah. I
Okay.
love that.
So,
Yes. So
and
that's fantastic.
my, like we had, my sister and I had, talking about mantras and stuff, we had shirts that, and our mantra was every day in every way, better, better, and better.
Hmm. I like that.
And
Nice.
we had like these cheesy 80s, 70s, 80s shirts that said it with iron-on decals letters. My dad wrote it in lipstick on our mirrors in the bathroom. So every morning we were seeing our mantra. Like I grew up with that type of mentality. We were going to, I don't know the names of them, but they were like akin to Conscious Life
Yeah.
Expo type things, where I was getting my aura read and
Nice.
and it's just like, that was just everyday life. And then, because my dad was chasing his Hollywood dreams, he was doing a lot of stage plays and a lot of, we were going to the Shakespeare Film Festival all the time. I feel like
Nice.
I grew up there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we lived just south of the Hollywood Bowl on a little street called Camrose. And
Wow.
um, you know, when he was chasing the dream, things were a little tough, particularly going from being an attorney and the provider to all of a sudden you're, like most of the Screen Actors Guild, you're unemployed.
Yeah.
And so, we spent a lot of time people watching because they used to say,
Yeah.
because it's free and you go down to Hollywood Boulevard and just kind of hang out,
Very
and
entertaining.
yeah. But it was interesting and great because it provided so much family time, so much talk time. It's like so many of our chats were, because we had no money to go do other stuff in the beginning. And then I spent so much time at Hollywood High School because just
Yeah.
learning how to play sports. Like every weekend we were there, and my dad was running the track. We're doing pull-ups, shooting hoops. The tennis courts are up elevated. And it was interesting because I didn't realize, and I don't know if he realized, but he was modeling behavior, and like, this is how
Yes.
you work for things. He was getting his body in shape, just like he was vocalizing with his voice, trying to get his tools in order to succeed in Hollywood. And he didn't have a workout buddy. He didn't have some coach saying, go do this, go do that. So I grew up seeing a motivated man doing what he needed to do.
Mm.
And that imprinted on me. And I didn't know
Awesome.
then, but it just was in my head. It was like, you just decide what you need to do in life, and then you just go and do it, because that's what I saw.
Yes.
And
Yes. Is that the hustle behind Latchkey Hustle?
that, and being like, not like, almost like Lord of the Flies-y, because after the divorce, everyone was working, and like my sister and I'd be out of school at 2:30 or 3, and we had a lot of time just with other kids with no parental supervision in the early and mid 80s. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of develop people skills, like learning how to read people's energy and who's the little suspect, who's a little shady,
Oh yeah.
who you need to hold on to your wallet next to, learning north, south, east, and west, learning stuff as a young person, which now a lot of that stuff you'd be like, they're too young to know these things. But that's kind of like the hustle you develop being a kid that has some downtime with no adults around as a latchkey kid. And
Mm.
that's where, that's kind of where it comes from, because those are unique building blocks.
Oh yeah.
That was a time and
Absolutely.
a place. And And it's like it's hard to find those types of building blocks now. It's like my kids don't, they're not just out in the world for 4 hours.
I know, right?
No
Like
cell
what?
phones, no
Yeah.
nothing.
There's an attachment, and we were detached at that age. Can I ask
Yeah.
when you graduated Hollywood High, or is that throwing too much
Oh, no,
information
I
out?
didn't.
Or,
We went there on the weekends to play sports.
oh,
Like my
okay.
dad used it as his gym.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
ex,
But
my kid's dad went there, so I was like,
you know what though? There's two schools, and you'll probably know both of them. The first one, if you go south on Highland, south of Hollywood Boulevard, going south, it's on the left, and it's the Little Red School.
oh yeah,
I went
no
there.
way.
Yeah, which is kind of
Oh, it's
crazy.
cute.
It
That's a cute
is. It's
one.
kind of, yeah.
Me
And then the
too.
other one is Hollywood Professional School. Do you remember
Oh
that?
no, I
So,
was 2000, came out in 2000.
so in the 70s, I don't know if it's still around, but in the 70s, there were a lot of kids of parents that were trying to make it in Hollywood, or kids trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yes,
And
yes, I
so
think I
there
do
was
know
a
that.
school called Hollywood Professional School, and it was basically like all the kids from Eight Is Enough and like, Brady Bunch, like all the kids in the industry went to this school because they were unique, flexible hours, and it vibed well with the industry and what the industry required. And
Mm-hmm.
so my sister and I went there for a few years, and then we moved in with my mom, who lived in Glendale. My biological mom lived in Glendale, so we moved in with her. And yeah, it was those early times seeing my dad put in the work. And again, I didn't look at it like that then, right?
Sure.
As a kid, you're just like, oh, that's dad, and like whatever. And my mom Cecilia was like not the backbone, but she was like there while he was struggling. She's like, I got you,
Mm.
you know, and like do what you need to do. I have faith in you. Go ahead.
Aw, what role models. I think that's so
Yeah,
sweet. Yeah.
yeah. And it's really neat too, because I didn't realize it until rather recently that my wife has a lot of Cecilia in her, because I grew up seeing that. And my wife is particularly supportive of me and trusting and
Aw.
has a ton of faith in me. And so, like, when I say something that's seemingly out of left field or a kind of a squirrely little idea, it isn't this knee jerk, like, well, wait, what? Explain this. It's her knee jerk is like, that's awesome. I'm sure it's going to work out, honey.
Aw,
And
that's so cool.
yeah,
I
and
love that.
it tracks back to my parents then, so it's
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah. So the consciousness, like you said, Conscious Life Expo. I remember when that started, what, 2001, I think was the first one, I think. But you've
Yeah.
been surrounded by that kind of scene for a while. So you've
Oh
always
yeah.
been into like regenerative health, or like taking holistic health, I should say. Has
uh,
that
going
been?
back going
Mhm.
back to Cecilia, she always had us eating healthy stuff, making like celery drinks and like,
Yeah.
as a teenager, it's not always awesome, but she saw the wisdom and knew about it back then. And
Yeah.
so, but visualization, meditating, stretching, those things were just hardwired into me.
Huh.
And so from an early age, I had a particular vibration to me. And
Sounds like it.
so there's a camp on Catalina Island called Camp Fox. And I used to go there every summer. And I was like in first, second, third grade as a young kid. And what the light pollution's like here in LA versus Catalina, there's like none.
I
And
still have
so,
never been there. 25
okay,
years. I've still never been to Catalina, but I've heard of, yes. Go
pull it
ahead.
together, girl. Get out there.
I know. I know.
But
Next trip.
so long story short, I'd be out there, we'd be at a campfire at night, and I'd look up and I'd see all these things going on. And a lot of times I'd be snorkeling and I would see things coming in and out of the water and going through the water into cave systems in Catalina.
Wow. Yes, I've heard of those. And you saw
And
them. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and when you have
Hi,
that
Sully.
foundation that I've described, And this acceptance of stuff like that, you see it, you don't question it. You're just like, oh, neat,
Like another visual. Yeah.
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 But just like, tasting and smelling colors, I assumed everybody just saw it, everything, and thought it was all cool and whatever. But then eventually, you get older and you kind of lose the kid factor. You lose the kid in you. And so, that happened, but, and I've refound it. But I do want to share one thing with you. It's kind of a crazy little situation. So
I love crazy.
Okay. So I lived with my biological mom for a few years in Glendale, and then my dad and Cecilia had some success in Hollywood. My dad had some success in Hollywood, and Cecilia was crushing it in her career. And there was a mini series called North and South. And it was North and South Book 1 and North and South Book 2. And it was all about the Civil War. And it had this huge heavy hitter of a cast, like Kirstie Alley, Forrest Whitaker. I mean, just
I remember. Yeah.
And so my dad, I want to say it was his big break, but he had a major part in that series, and that allowed him to buy a house in the Valley. So there's no more, living on Highland and Camrose. It was like moving on up, like the Jeffersons, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, I went and lived with them. I moved, and I went from Glendale, which at the time was, kind of pretty easy going and laid back, and a lot of Filipino and white folks and Armenian folks. It was kind of a harmless environment. And then I moved to the Valley, and I was going into 7th grade. And I went to this public school in LA Unified. And at the time, I don't know about now, but at the time, they had like 9 or 10 buses of kids from LA coming to go to school in this junior high in North Hollywood. And so it was like, I was going to school in the Valley, but like the hood got brought to us on buses.
That happens. Yep.
It's a part of it, right? That was the situation in 1986 or whatever. And so coming from Glendale, and then all of a sudden being in an environment where there's a lot of like kids that are just different, and they're just built different, they're wired differently, and there was an environment I wasn't prepared for. And so I got victimized a little bit, right? And so I was trusting, I was in my feels, as they say, I was a sensitive kid, and I'd, put my wallet down, and then it would be gone. And I'd come home and tell my dad, like, my wallet got stolen. He's like, why are you getting your wallet? What do you mean you put it down? What? And I'm like, I don't know. I was in the locker room. And he's like, don't put stuff down in public. Like, okay. Oof. And then, like a month later, I have a Swatch watch. You remember those?
Oh, gosh, yes. I love my Swatch.
Well, I had a cool Swatch watch. And then next thing you know, boom, Swatch watch is gone. And I come home, and I'm like, my watch is gone. He's like, what? And he's like, man, money doesn't grow on trees. You got to stop getting your stuff stolen. And I'm like, okay. So then, my wallet, the Swatch watch, and then I had a jacket, and the jacket popped up gone. And that one, there was a legitimate reason. I don't want to bore you with it, but it was taken, and it was taken because a teacher wouldn't let me go get it. Oh. The teacher was like, you can get it after class. And then by the time I went after class, it was gone. I was like, great.
Oh, jeez.
So I come home with this terrible track record of getting my belongings just taken from me like a total chump. And my dad is like, what is happening? How many different ways I got to tell you this? Don't put your stuff down. Keep your eyes on your stuff. Keep your stuff in your hands. Use your locker. Like all the different things he was saying. Like, okay. And so Michael Jordan comes out with Air Jordans, like 1986, 87. And I'm like, Dad, I got to have these shoes. And he's like, no, they're $100, whatever. I'm like, got to have the Jordans. And we'd have this big, long back and forth. And finally, he's like, okay, I'll get you these Jordans. We can go get them. But if these shoes get taken at that school, there's a fair chance that you will lose your life, right? Like, he's just like, and for the record, he's never put a hand on me. They were talkers, not hitters and stuff, but And so I'm like, no, 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 of course nothing's gonna happen. No, it's still my shoes. Come on. And so we go, we get the Jordans, and then my locker's not working, and I tell my best friend, hey man, can I put my shoes in your locker? I can't get my locker open. He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And unbeknownst to me, he shared his locker with his brother that was in ninth grade. Both of
Oh
them are
no.
off the LA bus. And so I go to get my shoes at the end of the day. I'm like, hey man, let me have my shoes. He's like, I don't see him in here. And I'm like, wait,
Oh.
what? And he's like, I don't know. Your shoes aren't in here. I put him in here, earlier. I don't know. And school's ending. Kids are getting on the bus. Like
Oh
the
no.
and there's like I said, there's like 9 or 10 buses. We're talking about hundreds of kids.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is my dad going, do not get these shoes taken. Right. And I'm like, there's no way I am going home and telling him these Jordans got stolen. And so, and the reason I'm telling this story is this was the first time in life that I realized, or at least stepped into my personal power.
Ooh, this
And
is gonna be good. Okay.
so I went, and this was in, mid 80s. LA Unified was rough. The administrators put their hands on kids. It was, before everyone was getting sued for everything. And so I literally went and stood in front of the first of the 9 or 10 buses. And I told the administrator out there, I'm not moving until my shoes show up.
Nice.
And she was not having it. And it was a big thing. And I told the teacher or the administrators, I'm like, you're going to have to move me. If you want me to move, you're going to have to physically do it. And what I figured out in the moment is that I was outnumbered, but I could leverage those numbers because, one, maybe 2 kids were the culprits. The other 400 or 500 kids needed to get home. They had after school jobs, they had music lessons, they had to caretake for their siblings. They needed to go somewhere. So I told this head administrator, Mrs. Robinson, I said, you should tell your people, go tell him on the bus. He's waiting for somebody stole his shoes. And she did it.
Awesome.
She told them on the walkie-talkie. And then all of those kids needing to get somewhere, they applied the pressure and they smoked out the dude that had the shoes. And so next thing you know, like within 5 minutes, the buses a couple of them are shaking in the front. I can see there's noise coming out. It's just like mayhem going on. And then you see this hand go like this, come out and go toop, and drop a bag. And then next thing you hear on Mrs. Robinson's walkie-talkie, you hear one of her other administrators got the shoes, they're in a bag.
Nice.
And yeah, and so I was just like,
Wow.
whoa.
Yeah.
And so I stepped to the side, all the buses leave, I got my shoes, and as amazing and crazy as that whole thing was, I couldn't go home and be like, Dad, you're never going to believe this. Because the story would have had to start with, I got my shoes stolen.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so did you bring them and put it? Because kids do, Jordans are still hot today. Kids will bring them just to show them, but not wear them around. They're like, oh, I can't wear these. And I'm like, why'd you bring them?
Yeah, no, this was the first year they ever came out. So I wanted them to wear, but the irony of the whole thing is, so I went home like nothing ever happened. And my dad was like, how was basketball? How did the shoes work out? Oh, great, awesome, thanks. And then like a year later, we have like a back to school night or a parent teacher, some purpose where my dad and Cecilia are at school with me. And Mrs. Robinson, the same head administrator, is like, yeah, he's doing really well. He's going to go places. He's, blah, blah, blah. And she's kind of going on and on. And my dad's like, what? That's great to hear. What are you basing this on? And she ratted me out without knowing. And she's like, well, my team of administrators and I have talked about it many times, that situation with the stolen Jordans and the way he managed that. And my dad's like, wait, what? And so, so that's how he ended up finding out that they got stolen. But it was interesting is Ms. Robinson said, like, his energy was vibrating. It was like he he was vibrating. He wasn't clear. That's what she said. I
Wow.
didn't,
Okay.
and it meant nothing to me then. I
Uh-huh.
was still like, I can't believe I got routed out a year later. But once I grew up and started learning about frequency and vibration and how, sometimes edges can get a little blurred and like,
Mhm.
I was like, she was witnessing that and reporting it. That's so fascinating. So that was the
Yeah.
first time I realized I had the ability to impose my will on hundreds of people, adults included.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That was a good one. I like that one. Yeah. But it
Yeah,
also
well,
sounds like, you used it for the right reasons to get your possessions back.
yeah.
I've
I
seen
mean,
people misuse power, but that doesn't sound like quite of a misuse. That's really cool. So
yeah.
how did that carry on through your life then? Like that was just the beginning. So did something spark inside of you like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to try this again," or "I'm going to hone in on this and try to master this," or how did that spiral you into
Yeah.
your next stages?
You know,
Hi, Sandy.
I my my dad and Cecilia had the foresight to see that public junior high and LA Unified was not for me.
Okay. Nice.
And they saw it extinguishing my spark,
Mm.
my light. They saw it dimming, just
Oh,
being in that
wow.
environment. And so they
Conscious
made an
parents there.
yeah,
Mhm.
and they
Yeah.
made an adjustment.
Hi,
And
Tuck.
by ninth grade, I was in a private school.
Okay.
And
Nice.
so, and my life changed because I
Awesome.
wasn't a matter of surviving, it was thriving, right? Because I was
Awesome.
literally going to school trying to maintain my possessions.
Yeah.
Forget
Especially what
learning and
80s, 90s LA, that was rough.
yeah,
Well, it was rough
yeah,
all the time, but so that's
um,
good. So then you got to at least not being in survival mode, I bet brought you
correct.
back in the heart. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cuz
yeah,
survival
and
mode's so tough. Mhm.
yeah, it's hard to grow,
Mhm.
when you're
Mhm.
just trying to maintain.
Mhm.
When you feel like not being in a fight is a win, like that's a low bar.
I
That's not
know.
that's not the correct environment.
Yeah. So you
So
really had some conscious parents there that were there for the
yeah,
betterment of you. So
yeah,
that's very
yeah,
good.
absolutely.
So what
So
did you start blooming into? Yeah.
well, I mean, like I mentioned, my dad playing football at UConn, and I had the athletic genes and some good eye-hand coordination, so I became kind of a jock. And school was always pretty easy for me. Academics were easy. And so I just, I went through high school, graduated. I played junior college baseball. I went and messed around in Division II, got injured, had a few surgeries. And then by then it's like the mid 90s, and the scouts are like, your speed was your thing. You're not a huge dude. I'm like 5'10". So they're like, you're not a giant. Your speed was your weapon, but you're 3 ankle surgeries in, we're not interested anymore. And so
Oh.
my athletic dream ended, and my dad basically was like, well, it's time. He didn't say pivot, but that's what it meant at the time. He's like, well, you got to figure out a new route. You got to figure out something else to do, you know? And at the time, because of the ankle surgeries, I had a lot of time in the dorm and in my apartment. And that was also when Johnny Cochran was doing his OJ Simpson thing. And
Okay.
so
Yeah, I
I
remember.
watched all of this court TV, and by the time that did its number on me, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to law school. And my dad was like, okay. And obviously he was an attorney. So he was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think, it's not for everybody, but I can see you doing it, whatever. And so I went to law school
Hi,
in
Jessica. Mhm.
1997. But I went there with that mentality of school's always been easy for me. Like I never had to work that hard academically, even in private school.
Hmm.
And that's the attitude and disposition I took into law school, and I got my tail handed to me. And I was like, oh, everybody here has a good memory. Everybody here can speed read. Everybody here can think on their feet. Like I'm not special at all here. This is a
Oh.
different pond, right? And so, but this ended up being one of those things. Like there's a lot of people that struggle their first year and decide, you know what, forget it. I'm going to go get a real estate license. It's not worth all this debt and all this stress and whatever. And so I had a decision to make, and my decision was adjust and compete.
Mm.
And so that's what I did. And I graduated law school in the year 2000, passed the California bar the first time I took it.
Whoa.
And I've been practicing law since then. So I'm almost
Wow.
25 years into my law practice.
Huh.
And it wasn't until well, this might be a good time for a picture. If you
Okay.
can show that one I sent you of the office view. If you can
Oh,
pull
yes.
that up.
Give me 1 sec. I will. Oh, that was a goodie.
Mhm.
This is I love hearing people's journey and their story, as they go along, because it's so it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that didn't make it into the pile. So let me just pull it up. Here it comes. Shared with me. High Vibe Hangout. Folks, if anyone has a question for our dear pal here comes office view. Wait till you see this view, guys. Here it is. Now, I feel like I know that building based on how I'm seeing this. Hi, Joe Fox. Hi, Jessica.
So this is looking north, obviously, and this is on Wilshire Boulevard.
Okay.
And to the right, up in the hills, that's the Griffith Park Observatory. And then obviously on the left is the Hollywood sign.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
that's,
That's a pretty darn good view.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, if you're going to have to look out your window while you're working, that's not a bad one.
That's
right?
not too shabby. So I have a question. Is this going to segue into how the heck you started catching, things in the sky, basically? Is this
In a
the
way.
view? Okay.
No, I
Okay.
mean, now where I am now, I think back like, oh man, I had so much good like sky watching opportunities that I never even considered because I was,
Oh.
I was up high and it was clear view, but that's just not where my headspace was then.
Okay.
But the reason I shared that picture with you is because my life was this sedentary grind. Like most people, you get out of whether it's undergrad or graduate school or whatever, and you try to hit the ground running, and then next thing you know, you've got a mortgage to pay and you got all these things, and your head is down. And one of the things I did, like a lot of people, is I did not prioritize myself at all.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so, LA traffic, and
Oh,
for
God.
people watching or in the chat, you've heard of it if you don't know of it. So even though I actually didn't live very far away, eventually I was in my car 3 hours every day.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
No, easily.
It's
Mhm.
easily an hour and a half commute to and from, right?
And that's
so,
maybe 15, 20 miles,
yeah,
right?
it's not even that far. Yeah, exactly. And
If
so
that. Mhm.
I would be sitting to drive an hour and a half, and then I'd get to the office and then I'd sit. If I weren't in court, I'd sit all day long at that desk, great view. Then when I was done, I'd go get in my car again and keep sitting for another hour and a half. And then I'd get home and then I'd be on a couch. My life was this sedentary life. And in the interim, I was drinking Cokes and eating fast food. And,
Oh, no.
I wasn't caretaking at all.
Gotcha.
My focal point was my professional pursuits and providing for my family. It wasn't me. And so all of that changed when the pandemic occurred.
Okay.
And so, March of 2020, things got all squirrely. And I continued doing that commute and showing up and working in person all the way through December. And I probably would have continued to do that, except that people in my office were getting sick a lot.
Oh.
And then I felt like I wasn't being responsible to my wife and kids because I was going into that environment and then coming home every day. And so I pulled the plug on that in December of 2020 and said, I'm going to start working from home. And,
Okay.
and so that's when I realized how much sitting I was doing and how much, how bad it was for me.
Yeah.
And, when you're in an office environment and you're in a business district, it's easy to go eat fast food or at a restaurant because everything is there,
Yes.
right? But if you're working, from home and you live in the suburbs, you have to make real efforts to go eat garbage.
Uh-huh.
Like it takes more of an effort. And so that kind of, for me, it highlighted my dietary issues that I was having, like eating terribly. And that's when I decided you need to get up onto your feet. And that's where the stand-up desk
I was just pulling that. I was
came into
looking
play.
for it, going, I think I know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
So you made this. Can I share it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It'll block us
Yeah.
out. Check this out. So this is what he made to appease the Sade.
No, it's
That
not
was your solution base. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fixer. Like literally, I get paid professionally to fix problems.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, in addition to like my actual job with my law firm, I would call it a side hustle, except I don't charge people, but I have people that reach out and say, this is my situation, what should I do? Or what do you, if you were in this boat, how would you handle this? Or how should I be thinking about this? Like I solve problems for a living. And so once I just never focused myself. I never used my problem solving skills on me.
And this began December 2020. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I was working from home and I'm like, well, I need to stand up. And so that was my solution. And then once I started standing, I thought, you know what, you should get a weight vest and just double down.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went from doing all that sitting to fast forward to now, I'm almost allergic to sitting. Like I'm sitting this moment, I'm sitting and I can't wait to stand up. Like the whole thing has evolved. Do you know what a walking pad is?
A walking pad? No.
Yeah, that's what they call them. I never knew of it either. It's basically a treadmill without the vertical components.
Oh, yes. So you use that in front of your desk? I've seen those on like TikToks.
Yeah. And so now I get 25, 30,000 steps a day and I can do it while I'm working.
Awesome.
And so anyway, And so I went through this evolution where I started to focus my problem solving skills on me a little bit. And like anything in life, when you find some success, it tends to snowball, right? Your confidence develops. And so I just decided, okay, well, what else do I want to take on? And I started intentionally taking on things that I didn't know how to do.
Okay. Nice.
And that's where like the paver pictures, if you want to pull those up, that's a perfect example. And this is why I shared them with you.
Which pictures was it? Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. The paver before.
Oh, yes. I have that. That's coming.
If you want to pull this up.
So you self-taught this. Yeah, this is coming. These didn't make it in the original. So hold on.
Sure.
We got a before and an after. So here's the before. It's coming.
And so.
That didn't, okay. Oops. And then I'll put up the after. So you saw this and you're like, okay, I need something there. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So to the right, behind that little white wall is all the pool equipment. And so, for years, the pool guy would come and he would just walk through that mulch, do what he needed to do and kind of walk out, and there was wires, and then I'd have to sweep the mulch off the pavers back in, and there's an elevation change, and it's not optimal at all. And I thought, I want my barbecue to be over there, and I'm gonna fix this situation. And so then I just thought about it and figured it out and ended up running a gas line from the heater of the pool under there over to a barbecue, and then I built steps and a patio. Yeah. And so I had never done anything masonry related. I had to look up the tools necessary. I watched videos on how to use a grinder, and then I watched videos on how to shop for a grinder. I went to Home Depot and asked about 20 million questions and just picking the brains of people who know stuff. And I taught myself how to do this. And I
Aw.
became like an amateur mason in a way. Not that that's that legit or super, super duper hard, but you know,
Hey,
it's
you could have
graded.
paid someone else thousands of dollars and you did it yourself. Yeah.
Oh, and
And at
the
the pool
same
guy,
me,
the pool guy's probably
would
happy.
have. Oh yeah, he was very happy about it. But the same John Billingslea would have paid somebody or just procrastinated and done nothing, which is actually what happened because I didn't pay anybody to do it. I just let a situation languish, right? And so
Gotcha.
part of my evolution was take things on, deal with these things, and what would happen is the more success I would have, the more I would feel capable.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I know I'm not in coming up with some novel idea. I'm just telling you this is the story and how it unfolded. And so each time, and I did the same thing with like the fascia boards around our house needed to be addressed. And I was like, I can figure this out. Like I'm the guy that just figured out how to build steps out of stone. Like,
Had you been commuting and still commuting, you wouldn't have the time. You'd be exhausted from the commute and you'd be like, I got to get someone else to do this. So now you're taking care of your own things. And that
yeah,
includes yourself. When
yeah.
you said what was it? Well, we'll get into it, but it looks to me like you even ran a marathon. When was that? Because
Yeah,
that's
that was,
pretty cool.
yeah, that was last year around this time. It was
That's
St.
intense.
St.
Sedentary
Patrick's
to
Day.
that.
Yeah,
That's
March 17th of last year. So St. Patrick's Day last year. But I'll talk about it in a sec. But so
oh, okay.
The more I did, the more confident I became that I could do. And it snowballed. And then it went from doing things around the house. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but behind me, there's a gate. It's like like a quarter wall and then a gate. And I have this gate around my entire property and it's black and it looks great. It wasn't always black. It was beat up and it was sun damaged and it was messed up. And I always just accepted it because it seemed like a big overhaul and I'm not a blue collar dude with these skills. Except after having these small net successes, I was looking around going, you know what, I can do this. You know what, I can do that. You know what, how hard could that be? You can figure that out. And so, you know, I don't know how many weeks it took me, but all of a sudden we've got cool black gates and everything's different and it looks great when it didn't before. And it's only because I was like, you know what, I just gained 3 hours of my life back because I'm not commuting and I'm going to put my mind to this. Right.
I think that's beautiful. It's empowering too. You finishing all those little tasks, it makes you want to get that rush again of like, I did that, I finished that. It makes you want to do more maybe, huh? It's empowerment.
And as I mentioned early on with seeing my dad and having him model behavior, my kids see me doing all of this stuff. And in the beginning, I wasn't sold on my abilities. And so I sort of used them in a way like I would announce to them what I was going to do because I knew that once I announced it, I didn't have a choice but to do it.
Glad you said that. Accountability.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I try to do that
you
too.
know, the thing is when, like I mentioned, I'm 5'10". When I was 5'10", 220 pounds and my back hurt and I couldn't do much of anything and whatever, I realized all of these aspects of who I am. It's one of these things where people, you know, on their journey, at some point you have to look in the mirror and be honest, right? With yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
And so I basically had a moment where I looked at myself and I just listed all the things that I didn't like. It was, you know, about me and my life and my behaviors, my thought processes. I listed out all of it and tried to come up with a common denominator. And the denominator, the through line was a lack of discipline.
Mm.
And so, you know, a lot of people will be like, I wish I was one of those guys, like that type of guy, like the guy that does this and that. And then I decided that discipline isn't a matter of having it or not. I have discipline. I've just let that muscle atrophy.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so
It is a muscle.
instead of focusing on trying to get in shape or trying to eat better or trying to do these particular things, trying to drink less alcohol, trying all these little things I would try and then fail. And I said, forget it. I'm not going to mess with any of that stuff. All I'm going to do is focus on my discipline. And then once I strengthened that muscle and toned it up, all of these other things became easy. Things that I was failing at before became like simple. Like I quit drinking Coke and I didn't even think it through enough to realize I was quitting sugar and caffeine at the same time. Like it's not even a smart thing to do, really. But
At once.
you
Yeah.
know, most people will wean or replace, you know, the Coke with coffee and then go regular to decaf, like do this
Yeah.
staged, whatever, reasonable. My discipline was so tweaked up that I was like, there's nothing I can't do. And so I just decided, and I told my wife, I'm going to be done with fast food. And then I was done with fast food. And same thing happened with carbs. I'm like, you know what? I don't even eat bread. I'm eating it out of habit, not because I love it. Like, this is pointless. I'm like spiking my insulin for no real reason. Knock that out. I was taking SSRIs for depression and anxiety related to my career. And then I realized one day, I go, you know, I'm not, the person that these were prescribed for is another guy. I'm not even that dude anymore. I'm taking someone else. I'm taking someone else's medications. Forget this.
You can get yourself out of that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's a big one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, again, probably in retrospect, not the wisest thing to just stop taking them. But, you know, so much of this is mind over matter-ish. Whereas if you believe it in your core, your body will follow suit.
Yes. It is mind over matter, right?
Yeah,
Your body will follow suit. Yeah.
And it goes back to that, you know, me talking about just mantras and all of those things at that early building blocks age, just being truth for me. Like you can do what you put your mind to. And I bought in as a 5-year-old. So I wasn't having
It was a memory recall, right?
Yeah,
Sorry
I
to interrupt.
wasn't
It was a
learning.
recall. You're like, I know
Correct.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't learning new concepts. I was going back to my origins of my base beliefs. They had just kind of been squelched by growing up and getting in the rat race of your career and all those things. And I lost sight of those things. And so having this extra time from not commuting and working from home has provided me with the opportunity and the clarity to remember these things. And then it was just about putting them into action.
Well, and beautifully said, Jane. Awesome testimony, because that is testimony for those that maybe didn't have that same childhood that you and I had, where we were taught about mantras and mind, thoughts become things and all that. Folks can change. They can change their lifestyle with just a thought. And I think that's case in point. So you don't have to be like, well, I never traveled like that, so I can't do that. But you can. Right. You change your choices.
That's a good segue into the archery 1, 2, and 3. If you want to,
I got that ready and a video.
Yeah.
Here's one. Wow.
So. Yeah, I mean, that's just a close-up so you can see what's going on there. So obviously that's a target and there's a few arrows in it. And then the second one, I took a picture. Basically, I put my phone on top of that top arrow. And so you can see where I'm shooting it through.
Yeah.
So I have it tucked in the trees. And that was a negotiation with my wife. She's like, you can put a target up, but I don't want to see it. So you're gonna have to hide it.
That
I
was
was like,
smart.
okay.
And you still
So,
got it. But this video
yeah,
is pretty big. Is it on the video of? Yeah. No, that's the ice, I think. Well, it shows how far back. Can I show that now?
yeah,
Is
sure.
that one?
So
Look how
yeah,
far. So you clearly hit this
it's
from way back.
32. It's 32 yards from that gazebo to this target, and so I zoom out so you can kind of get a sense of where I shoot
Mm-hmm.
from. And
Mm-hmm.
I had no archery skills. I was not, it's just one of those things that I thought this was perfect for me. I have the space for it. It's really challenging. And it's not like golf where you need 6 hours to go do it. You don't need a partner. I can go get lost and focus on this and develop these skills. And so I did.
In what
And
time frame? How'd you learn to hit like that?
probably like 6 or 7 months. And
Oh
the thing
wow.
is, my muscles weren't built for it. So once I started and I was all wobbly and shaky and the arrows, and I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. I have to strengthen my back. That's what's my muscle structure is not prepared for what I'm asking it to do right now. So go back to basics. So I got in my garage and I built like this pulley system and literally just to strengthen my shoulder girdle and my back. And once I pulled my core strength together, all of a sudden, it's kind of just about aim, really.
Mhm.
And so, and wind and elevation, nonsense like that. But the point is, I continue to find things that interested me, that I had no knowledge or ability. And that became the challenge, just like
Wow.
the masonry, just all of these things. I was like, I can, and again, it snowballed. And so it was at this last point when I started to focus on my physique, because
Gotcha.
I was like, how much proof do you need that you can change and you can advance? Just because you're 50 doesn't mean you're done. So maybe focus on something else that you're not happy with, which is your body, and show your kids this is what dedication to a workout regimen and healthy eating will do for you.
Mhm.
Maybe be a little more attractive to your spouse again. Like there's all these reasons to do it. And
Mhm.
this progression led me there. And so if you pull up the pool pictures, I would like to kind of talk you through that.
Sure. I'll pull that one, the first one. Let me go to my little file. Thank you for letting me practice this pulling things up.
Yeah.
Here it comes. This is pool 1.
So that's what you're going to see is the same pool that's behind me, right? And so
Oh yeah, there you go.
I've got 2 weight vests on that total like 40, 42 pounds or something. And then there's
Wow.
2 30-pound dumbbells.
Whoa.
And so once I pick those up and jump in the pool, I'm jumping in the deep end with 100 pounds, just dragging me not dragging me, like shooting me to the bottom.
Oh,
and what I would do is basically jump squats from the bottom of the pool. And each time I would get to break the surface, I would take my breath and then go back down and jump with this weight. And then invariably, as you tire,
wow.
there's one jump where you don't make it to the surface. So you cannot get that breath. And then it's about keeping your wits, because you go back down without your breath. And then I would walk out into the shallow end where I could breathe. And so the reason I was doing this is to create a fight or flight scenario.
Whoa.
And it worked, because it is unnerving when you jump in a pool and you immediately know you couldn't swim. Like, yes, I could drop the weights, but I still had 40 pounds strapped to me.
Yeah.
And so I included these because I kind of tapped into something when I realized there are ways to intentionally engage your fight or flight mechanism. And the more I did stuff like this, the more calm I would be in otherwise stressful scenarios. A lot of them in work. Things that would frazzle me at work before, I was just like, yeah, okay, I've got this, and it made me better, even here, like outside of work, but as a dad or as a husband, scenarios where, I'd get kind of rattled or get worked up or something. It's like, no, we're fine. We'll get through this,
Oh,
okay.
so it's not just physical workouts you're doing the whole thing, mental, consciousness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And so, and then I started to I don't say feel myself, but I started, like, if you look at number 10, if you pull that up, I started developing my physique so much that it was like a new toy. And
Number
I didn't
10,
say,
you mean the abs one?
yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
No, the
Oh,
plank.
sorry. I got a
That's
sneak peek
okay.
there. I'll pull up the plank. So go ahead,
Yeah.
explain it more while I pull it here.
So
Let's see.
I started to,
I have to remove one.
it felt like, I was able to, it felt like a new toy, like you get something new at Christmas as a kid and you just want the batteries and you want to play with it right away and see what it can do. That's how my own body felt. And
Okay.
so I do a lot of calisthenics and a lot of body weight stuff.
Oh,
And
I'm so sorry to interrupt. That one, I forgot to check. That one's a ping. The others are JPEGs. So
okay,
I'm not sure if I can convert that one. It's a plank when you have but you're holding on to the weights doing it. How come that's the
yeah,
only one that one will pull in there? I'm sure Gerald knows a way to fix this, but let me
that's
see if I can
okay.
do it real quick while you're talking.
Well, I mean,
I'll
it's
try to
not the end
save
of
it.
the world. The point is, it's, I didn't even know that it had a name until my CrossFitter friend saw it and was like, you can do a Superman plank? And I'm like, I guess, if that's what that is. Like, the point is, I started testing out the limits of my own body and was real like, oh, this is like having a new toy. This is so cool. I can do all this neat stuff. And none of it was possible previously, but I was just so in my own way and not focusing on myself, right?
Wow.
And so then you can put up that number, that abs one. I numbered them, but
Okay.
you can put up the abs one. And this is just, and frankly, I've never showed any of these pictures to anybody, like, publicly. So
The debut. And I see you there,
yeah,
Gerald. I was just changing a ping to a JPEG. So we're good. We're good. Wow. There you go. Look at you. How much was the
yeah,
time frame here?
like 7 or 8 months. It wasn't that long, but and again, I'm not, I don't know how I feel about looking at this. Like, but the reason I shared it with you, and like I said when we were texting earlier, I want to provide some degree of bona fides. And
Yeah,
I
people, yeah.
want other people watching to realize, like, these things are possible and you don't have to pay somebody at a gym. You don't need a workout partner. You don't have to buy you don't need a guru. I don't have a training buddy. You can accomplish things on your own.
Yes, there you go. Here's the
And
high school, right? This is where your dad worked out. Is that the high school picture you were sending? Is that Hollywood
yeah,
High where he worked out?
yeah,
He just went there to work out.
yeah, we would hop the fence and then we would play basketball. We did everything there. And
See, you didn't need to pay anyone for that.
no, yeah. And the crazy part is, and I'll tell you the backstory of this particular picture, but if you go to marathon before and after, this is where it kind of gets, for me, it gets a little, I don't know, it's interesting. So,
oh, I see. Oh, that's right. The arm. Yep. Oh, here it
yeah.
comes.
And so the reason I sent you this is because my CrossFitter friend, basically, she said, hey, I know you like doing really tough things. Me and my CrossFitter people run the LA Marathon every year. Do you want to run it with us? And I don't like running myself personally. And I also have a knee replacement. And so I said, that sounds amazingly sucky for sure. Like I'll go do it because that's going to be awful and hard, but amazing because it's awful and hard. And so this picture was what I looked like on the left, the muscle I had put on when she asked me. And what I did 3 things to get ready for the marathon. Only one of them was physical. I cut calories and stopped doing my calisthenics and intentionally let my muscle waste away.
Oh.
Which is why those 2 pictures, and that's the same t-shirt I'm wearing.
I know, I was going to say the second one looks looser.
It is,
Yeah,
because my
okay.
muscle's gone. I look like a little weak, emaciated boy. I hate it. But it was intentional. And so my point is, like, just like you can get abs or get muscles, once you are the master of your domain and you can exert mental dominion over your physical form, you decide what it looks like. And so I made the intentional choice to get rid of the muscle I had worked so hard to get, but I didn't want to run around LA for 26 miles with muscle I didn't need. I said, I needed, if I'm going to do this without being a runner, I'm going to need to stack the odds in my favor. And what that means is getting rid of this excess muscle.
Gotcha.
And that's why I shared this picture with you, because that was, you know, from November and then by March. So from November to March, that was the difference. And I went from 180 pounds to 156 pounds.
Holy smoke. And you were 220 the year before, huh? Or 2 years before.
A couple years before, yeah. And so that's a skinny little, you know, kind of a whatever dude. But it was a change that I made that was purposeful, right? And so I said I did 3 things to prepare for this race. The first one was I did a weight cut. So I cut my calories and stopped training strength. So I let myself wither. The second thing, look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but I brought over. The second thing is this.
Your mantras.
Yeah, I came up with a mantra. And it's not complex. All it says is I run marathons from start to finish because I choose to. That's it.
Thoughts become things.
Yeah, but this whole book is filled with it.
Wow.
When she invited me in November, I came up with the mantra the first week in November, and every day I wrote that down from November to March.
That is discipline. That's the recurring theme of discipline here, huh?
Yeah. Once I tweaked that discipline muscle and got it in shape, anything was possible. And
well,
this
and
is
discipline.
After you.
No, I was just saying, and discipline's a choice. It's you choose to be disciplined in every moment. Okay, go ahead.
Right. But like all of this stuff we're talking about, it snowballs too. The more discipline you practice and demonstrate, the easier it gets, and the more disciplined you become. And that's something, you know, I realized in this journey. So, okay, so cutting calories and stop strength training, and then my mantra, which is a very basic, simple mantra, but I pounded it into my head. Third of the 3 things I did is I printed out a map of the route of the race. And because I grew up here, I have memories all over the place, and we're passing all of these significant places along the race. And so every night, I shouldn't say that, I tried to do it every night. I would say probably 95% of the time I went to bed visualizing me running the race, which started at Dodger Stadium and ended at Century City. So I visualized myself running and passing these parts of the race that, you know, like Hollywood High School being one of them. And, you know, the Comedy Store, I have a lot of memories and history there. I worked in Century City in the legal field. So Avenue of the Stars means something, you know, Brentwood, it goes to Brentwood and then turns around, comes back. I had memories in Brentwood. After Dodger Stadium, it goes through Chinatown. I had memories there. The point is, I visualized myself doing it more nights than not. And interestingly, and I don't know why this is, but interestingly, every time I visualized crossing the finish line, it was emotional. I
Mm,
cried in my visualization. I was teary-eyed and I cried. And
mm.
I think it's because there was a tacit acknowledgement of how difficult it was actually going to be. So succeeding was emotional. I think that's where it came from. The reason I mention that is because the day of the race comes, I run it, I finish it, and I start bawling as I'm crossing the finish line. And the only way I can explain this is to say I didn't feel like I was doing something new or for the first time. I felt like I was reliving a memory
Hmm.
because
Aw.
all of the visualization, my brain, it was almost like I tricked my brain into thinking it had already happened. And so when it did happen, my brain was like, oh, yeah, we're doing this again. And
Aw.
the tears flooded. And, a lot of it was, for me personally, was showing my kids, like, you can do things if you put your mind to it. That's what mattered most to me. I didn't care for myself. My motivation was to be able to come home that day with a finisher's medal and say, see what dad did? You guys
Uh,
can do anything you want. And so, yeah, I ran a marathon with a fake knee and no training.
and 3 ankle surgeries. Hi, Mogs.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So mind
And
over
so,
matter. Absolutely. That's
yeah,
that's the bit.
yeah. And
Wow.
so,
Geez. And that was
yeah, so
last year? You
that
did
was
the
last
last year
year.
one. Was it raining? Wasn't there a rain? Something was, it's always something goes on with that. That's
Um,
intense.
it rained a little bit on and off, but it was not a factor. But after that, then I was like, okay, well, I don't like this look for me. It looks a little sickly, so it's time to put some muscle back on. But unfortunately, I fully detached my right retina. And so I ended up having to have a surgery. And then it was months of the doctor saying, you can't strain, you can't
Oh
fly
no.
anywhere, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so, again, though, it was a thing where my discipline saved me because if I was unable to do really anything physical. And if I lacked discipline and started eating like crap and got sad and because I'm, whatever, I would have just become a mess again. But I doubled down on my clean eating because I couldn't do much physically. And so
Mm.
I was able to basically maintain. And so, I got a clean bill of health eventually, and then I could start strength training again. And so now I'm back to, having a nice little six pack and some veins and all the good things that I like
Bulging
having.
shirts.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, we're gonna
Mhm.
take a vacation in the summer. I want to look nice wherever we go. So, you can't wait till then. You got to start early. So my point is though,
Mhm.
the discipline even isn't necessarily always doing something affirmative. Sometimes it's having the discipline to stay off, not do the push-ups because the doctor said no, or have the discipline to keep eating your, whatever the food choices you make, and don't get sad in your feelings and say, screw it, I'm going to Taco Bell.
Uh-huh.
Because you do it once and then you do it twice, and then next thing you know, you're one of those I'm going to start on Monday types, and the wheels have totally fallen off.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Lawrence is going to love this. Hello to Lawrence and the replay crew. He adores you, and I know he's ready to
Mm.
hear your story, and he's going to really champion this because he's taught me a thing or two about discipline and one foot in front of the other. And my biggest thing of hearing your journey is the modeling the behavior, the way that, we're both parents, and, to get
Yeah.
out of that ego sense and be like, wait, I'm raising a child. I do need to model the behavior that I wish to instill in them. And it does help with the discipline a little bit to know that someone's watching you.
It
But really,
does.
it comes from inside. It's for yourself, really,
Yeah.
too.
And
Yeah.
I mentioned also that I kind of used my kids a little in the early going by announcing what I was going to do, so I
The
couldn't get out of
accountability.
it. Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
because before it's like you have a plan to do something and nobody knows about it, and then you decide to flake on your plan and nobody knows.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
what it, you know.
Yes. I was sharing that a little bit in my live yesterday because I do that with Carol and Jane. I send them talk texts of like my life here and just pivots I'm having, and I'm declaring what I do want. And I'm like, okay, I put it out there now to
Yeah,
follow through.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't, fortunately, I'm not in a position where I have to do that anymore, but I
Mm-hmm.
used that as a stepping stone for me. It was like a crutch in the beginning,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and so, yeah. And I
So,
guess,
mhm.
go ahead.
Oh, no. You get, well, I was going to say with all that training, when did the ice baths come in? Because that's a good little video too.
Um, the ice baths started around like the summer of 2023. So
Mm,
a little shy of 2 years ago. And kind of in the same vein as the pool pictures we looked at, I was looking for things to do that I knew were going to be hard for me to do. Because
yeah.
I don't like the
Makes
cold.
sense. Yeah.
I'm an LA dude. I don't like the cold.
Yep.
Well, I-
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
not I'm not Jane and Garrel over here. I don't live in that.
Do you want me
So
to share it? You want me to share
yeah,
that video?
yeah, you can. Before you hit play though, I just want to
Uh-huh.
point out, um, like meditating, visualization, breath work. There's some things stretching. There's some things that are boring to watch, right? And it's like I wasn't going to send you a picture of me visualizing. What's that about, right? So the reason I sent this one in particular and left the audio is because you can hear the impact of the breath work in this video, because from like second 20 or 25 to 30, 35, you can hear that I'm in the sympathetic nervous system. I'm dealing in fight or flight because it's cold and I just got in, and you submerge your hands in particular. For some reason, it's very cold. And
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
I get in like up to my neck. Like I don't like half, I'm in. And so you can key on the breathing to hear it. And then from like, I don't know, second 30 to 40, you hear the transition. And I've used my breath work to navigate from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic with breath work as my tool.
Wow.
And then I fast forward, and then at the end, I slow it, and you can hear it again. And it sounds like I'm practically asleep in there. I
That's
think
what I was going to say. Yeah.
you hear like one
Yeah.
or two breaths, but
Yep.
that's a function of the breath work. So I wanted to point that out before you hit play, so
Okay.
people can kind of hear it as well as watch it.
Okay. Okay. Let me show this. Whoa. That was a long time. I haven't seen my mom friends do that. I haven't seen them do it that long. Wow. Hi, Tim Mothman. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
but
Is that
like
a regular, it looks like one of those sheds. So that's your regular, how often do you do that?
it depends on my body composition. Like the more lean I am, if I'm around 10, 11% body fat, I would probably wouldn't even stay in there more than a minute because your organs cool really quickly when you don't have a layer,
Okay.
you know, of insulation. Um,
Gotcha.
right now I'm around 15, 16% body fat probably. And so, you know, I can stay in a bit longer. But the other thing too is that you can do it in different ways for different purposes. Like if you want to do it for fat burning purposes, like to stimulate brown fat burning, the idea isn't to get cold adapted. The idea is to shiver. And so like when I want to do that, I will not focus on my breath work. I'll just get in and then I'll get out and I'll stand in front of a fan
Wow.
and I shiver. But you know, that's something I don't do quite as much anymore because my body looks and operates in a way that I'm happy with. I'm not trying to lose a ton of anything at this point. So I use it for other purposes, which I pair with the breathing, and it gets back to that, like having mental dominion over your physical form. Like I have to be careful because my breathing and my fortitude is so good that I can stay in there too long. And so that shed is on the outside of my daughter's room. And when she's home, I'll just say, hey, sweetie, set a 5-minute timer.
That's good you have someone around. Yeah, just
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the mom in me, just in case.
But you know, also in keeping too with like the masonry and, you know, all of these things, that is a homemade fashioned ice bath. I bought
That's so cool. I
the
saw.
containers from Home Depot. Is like $140. It's like a horse trough. And then I figured out a siphon system and, you know, a hose situation. And I literally, when I want to do an ice bath, I go to Costco, I get 12 bags of ice for $43. I put it in there, I fill it up, and it gets to 29 or 30 degrees. And if I want to
Wow.
do one at 40 degrees, I'll get 8 bags of ice. So I figured out how to kind of control it. But again, it's one of those things where you don't need thousands of dollars and to go buy one of these high-end things. If you want to do something, you can find a way to do it. Before
Yes.
I built that, I used my kid's tub. And then I fell in love with the suffering of it. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to go figure out like a legit way. So I cleared out the shed and, you know, kind of put that together.
I love it. You fell in love with the suffering of it.
Yeah, I did. I did.
That's
That's
that
just,
mentality. Yeah,
yeah,
overcoming.
for
Wow.
me, staying in, like returning to a degree of discomfort keeps me
Yeah.
sort of sharp. And that's one of the
Okay.
things I learned over that 20-year period of the grind. It was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable sitting
Mm-hmm.
around, eating whatever, not having to make tough food choices, you know, just it was comfortable and I was terrible for it. So
Mm.
for me, even when I'm not doing an ice bath, like in the morning, I get out of bed and go get in this pool and it's 45, 50 degrees. And the deeper you go, the colder it is. And that's not comfortable, especially
Yeah.
right out of a warm bed, you know? And so
Yep.
for,
Yep.
I sort of mentioned like being a fixer. And so not a lot, some people in my life, friends and family alike, have essentially been like, what are you doing to make these changes? You're different, you look different, you carry yourself differently, your energy is different. And so I tell them, you know, I explain and I say, if I were you, I'd just start with like, turn off the hot water for the last 10 seconds of your shower
Mm.
and just do 10 seconds of cold shower. Like start with baby steps. Because if you aren't geared up for this level of discomfort and then go get in an ice bath, you're not going to do it more than once.
Mm. Oh,
You're
yeah.
most likely, you're just going to be like, yeah,
Listener.
no.
Yeah, yeah, not for me. And Carol's saying try a sauna, then do an ice bath. Have you?
Yeah,
Because I do that in like the Korean spas out here are very much ice plunge, the hot plunge. You do dip
right.
around like food.
Yeah, he's right. And
Okay.
um, my sister, Tanya, who is the other little person in our logo, she has an infrared blanket, or like you get in, it's not just a blanket, it's like a sleeping bag, like it's wrapped all around.
Oh,
And
nice.
so, and it can get pretty hot. And so I borrowed it And for me, the key is to do the infrared blanket first and then get into the ice or get into the pool, because doing the reverse is easy, because you're really, if you get the ice or pool first, you get out, you're cold. All you want is to get into a warm blanket. But if you do the reverse and you're sweating and you're hot, and the last thing you really want to do is get into a 40-degree anything. So
Did you study Wim Hof, or were you familiar with Wim Hof before you started doing all this?
No, in the process of it, I kind of became familiar or learned about him, and some of the breathing techniques of his I've practiced and I've adopted. Yeah, and it's one of those things, like I can hold my breath for like 4 or 5 minutes, which for me is really good.
That's really good. Yeah.
It's not, I don't know if it's not particularly important really. I mean, but it was just one of the many things where, like, you got a new gift or a new toy for Christmas and you want to play around with it and see what it can do. And so I've gotten so good with my breath work that it's fun to challenge myself and just sit lotus style at the bottom of my pool and just hold my breath.
Yeah. It's just more training, more mind over matter. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love it. I am just, and I appreciate this chat. Thank you guys. They're sharing in the love too. I have a random pivot though. Are you ready for a weird pivot? Because I'm super curious especially with, I mean, where did it come in other than the consciousness, working with all, different realms of things you saw as a child on Catalina Island and things like that. When you started like filming crafts and things at your house, like how did you find these communities? How did you come to start taking videos and go, what is this? And then, I see you in a lot of community chats with the paranormal or UFOs and all that kind of things.
Right.
Because it's another aspect of you that I think is really cool.
Well, thanks. And thanks for the question. So, I've always, it's funny because I've never seen an episode of, what was that show in the early 90s with Scully and Mulder?
Oh, X-Files.
I never saw an X-Files, and I've never seen a Skinwalker Ranch. I'm aware of them. I'm a busy dude, and I prioritize being a dad and a husband and then being an attorney. And then way down on the list is watching programs. So I'm not judging people for watching it. It's just not where I place my time priorities, and time is, critical for me. And so, but I've always been of the mindset that these things are around us. And so in the beginning of 2024, I was listening to Spaced Out Radio, and they had a guest on, Dr. Robert Shipe, and it was the first week of January, and he happens to be in Marina Del Rey. And so immediately I was interested, because you don't hear, you're listening to a Canadian YouTube show or whatever, and they're talking, some guy's talking about the marina, so it gets your attention because it's not far from me. And he was talking about how these things that he called dragons are zipping around and buzzing airplanes, and I'd never heard of it, and I just thought it was very, very interesting. And so I did two things. I started recording the sky and then scrolling through my own footage, frame by frame, zoomed in. And I also started looking at my own previously recorded videos, because I had things on my phone that I never thought to look for. And so once I heard that program and I got into it and I started looking at things and finding things, and I reached out to Dr. Shipe. And, the reason our channel, the name of it is Latchkey Hustle and has nothing to do with UFOs or UAP or anything, is because my sister and I planned to talk about the hustle you get from growing up as a latchkey kid.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Okay.
We had an entirely different plan.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started seeing these things, and the raising of my vibration, I believe, through all of the things we've been talking about, allow me to see things and perceive things that I was shut off to previously.
Hmm.
And so I talked to my sister and got her blessing. And she said, just use the channel and do what you're going to do, follow it. And then when you're ready, let me know and we'll do our thing. But the
Aw.
framework is all set up. You got the, you know, the YouTube channel, you got the
Yeah.
name, you got the logo, we did the logo, everything is in place. Don't go
Yeah.
start from scratch. Just use our channel, do what you're going to do. I'll be here when you're ready. And that was January of 2024.
Wow. Thanks, Tanya, your sister.
Yeah,
Because
no,
so people came
absolutely.
to your channel for that because we started trending these great videos of your catches. It's
Thank
really
you.
making me think twice because with flight paths, and I want to start watching a little bit better because we are in a pretty big hot spot, I feel, Los
Yeah,
Angeles
I
and the
agree with
coast.
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tim, and I'm sharing really quick. Tim Mothman was saying, I pray your parents are okay. He hadn't seen you. So earlier he was sharing, Tim Mothman, that yes, his parents are okay. And he stopped sharing that GoFundMe because they got out of the, you know, that's the scary part. And so he's around. He's just been training. he's always in training. So you're not on SOR right now, but you'll have to check in with your fans there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
then I'm not surprised hearing it because it sounds like it was another thing that intrigued you, and then you investigated. You had the discipline to follow through, contact Dr. Shipe, and do these videos yourself. So it's yet another thing that you
thank
put
you.
yourself, through another
Thanks.
way because and I love your delivery of your videos. So if anyone in the chat by chance doesn't know Latchkey Hustle, check out his channel because he's got some great videos, and you're so calm and serene when you explain them. And I'd be like, whoa, what is that? But you're like, I don't know. This is interesting. Check this out. Really good
Yeah,
channel.
thank you. I appreciate it. And the most fun I have with it is in people in the comments, and I maybe this is a function of my age and just the way I was raised and stuff, but for is woo woo as Bo and Cece were and open to everything. My childhood was my dad was also military and an attorney. And so I had the perfect mix of that open woo, everything's possible with life as a meritocracy.
Mm.
And so it's not in my DNA yet. It can be if I want it to be, which is part of the point of what we're saying. We can change.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's not in my DNA to ask people to like and subscribe.
Gotcha.
My disposition is that if you enjoy what you're seeing, you will come back, you will share it, but it's merit based. If you don't like it, that's fine too. Don't come back and don't share it. But I'm not going to ask you to do it. The work should speak for itself. And again, I don't judge people who say like and subscribe. I'm simply saying that that's not how I'm currently wired. And so I think as a result, my channel may not have as much traffic as it could. I don't know. And frankly, it's not a moneymaker. This isn't a side hustle. This is something that I find fascinating, and I have good visual acuity. And so I can see things in videos, and I like sharing them when they're inexplicable.
I love I love that. I think that's good energy all around your channel too. And if you do start something with Tanya, like that's just a playlist or another separate segment, same channel, you could still have the hustle of a latchkey kid.
No, I totally agree. Oh, can I mention something?
Please. Yes.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Jake Barber, but he's one of the more recent whistleblowers on the UAP UFO thing, and essentially he's a former tier 1 operator, like a special operator that went into the private sector, and he works for one or more of the defense contractors up in the high desert, like Lockheed, Raytheon, whatever. And essentially he's come out over the last couple of months and explained that one of the things he did was retrievals with the helicopter and his crew, retrievals of downed anomalous craft. And what he also explained on to Ross Coldhart on News Nation, and then Jesse Michaels and some other subsequent videos or interviews, is he explained that they have psionics assets who can, through psych efforts, call in these craft. And one of the things he was explaining is that what they learned, what they have found, is that the psionic assets who are able to do this have two primary things that they are able to do to bolster this ability. And the first one is get into fight or flight, and then the second one is to engage in disassociation.
Huh.
And the reason I'm mentioning that is because some of the things we watched today that I was doing
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
unknowingly
Yeah.
was putting myself into fight or flight, and with the ice finding a way to disassociate.
Yes.
And I was practicing the things that this whistleblower said were heightening these people's intuition, which was then allowing them to perceive and engage the UAP.
Wow. Yeah, I was picturing you with the pool and the ice bath. You're doing both. So hence you're now having more
Yeah.
contact, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
visualization. Visual.
And,
Yeah.
and again, it's a happenstance.
Wow.
And just when I heard his interview, I didn't have to look at the videos. I know what I've been doing with my own body for the last few years. And I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this explains why I'm opened up to these things, because I've been doing these things that he's talking about. So I just found it, fascinating.
It's fascinating, and it resonates big time. Because honestly, my experience with craft, visualizing them when I'm at my highest vibration, like I am really treating myself as the temple it should be, really, and I'm kind of a beacon. And then lo and behold, I have little experiences. Skywatch is very entertaining those days. So yeah, I can see definitely see how that relates. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, very super cool. Yes, very interesting. Cool. Aw. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah, Jane's loving that one too. Miss High Vibration herself. Well, I think we're winding down a little bit here. Do you feel like, is there anything we didn't cover, or any of the pictures we didn't cover that parts of your story that we didn't get to? Or
no, I mean, there's no end to the story. I mean, I'm living the story, isn't, right? So,
yeah, it continues.
I think on the note that you highlighted about modeling, I think I would just like to also round out that point by saying, I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son, and Bigfoot Dwarf and I exchanged texts and pictures and things, and we were friends, and he's seen some of these photos, but both of my kids do ice baths.
Oh, they do. Yeah. Oh, my daughter's 14. Maybe we should meet up. Yeah. And I was thinking of that with her for her vagus nerves and her nervous system. But how do they like? By choice? Like they were like, I want to try. Yeah.
No, they just saw me doing my
throw
thing.
Them in.
They saw me doing my thing, and eventually my daughter was like, I want to try, can I? And I said, sure. Wow. Yeah, you can. And she tried one day, just got into her knees. And then a week later, I was doing another one, and she's like, I want to go all in. I said, okay. I never, I wouldn't push it on them. I just do my thing. And they both got curious. And then once big sis went in, little brother wasn't going to get outdone. So he was like, I'm in, I want to in. So I said, okay. And he has negative body fat. So I told him, I'm like, you're not going to be in there long because you're tiny and you got no fat. So you can get in, but don't argue when I say it's time to get out. You just need to get out. And he's like, okay. And the reason I mention it is because as young people, their mental resolve is next level. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. When it's time to do something they don't want to do or is difficult, uncomfortable, they just do it. And they were not always like that.
Hmm.
There was a significant change once they decided to start doing things that are uncomfortable. And so, just last little quick story. Um, Last year, it was like one of these days where it was just raining here nonstop. And it was dark in the morning still. So, I guess it was winter. And I told my family at dinner, by the way, y'all, I'm getting up at 4:30 and I'm getting in the pool, and then I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna dry off my feet. I'm gonna put on shoes and socks, and then I'm gonna walk this hill with a weighted vest in my bathing suit soaking wet. Anybody
We-
want to do it with me? You're more than welcome. And I just left it at that. My daughter set an alarm on her own without telling me, shows up in the garage in a bathing suit at 4:15 in the morning, ready to roll.
Oh,
And
wow.
we got in the pool. It was pouring, raining sideways. We got out and we walked the hills. And, she's 13 years old, all on her own. And I was
Oh,
telling
wow.
her, I was kind of pumping her up on the hill walk back, like, honey, just so you know, nobody in your entire school is doing this right now. Child or adult. Nobody is as strong as you are in this moment. Understand that.
Mm.
And, so I just want to reiterate, I guess, the value of modeling. And it goes both ways, obviously. So we
Mhm.
have to be careful with how we behave and how we conduct ourselves, because good modeling and bad modeling is still modeling.
It's
So
still
that's
modeling.
one of the things I've sort of taken away from all of this. It's a nice reminder.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. That's really inspirational, actually. I'm feeling pretty pumped. And
Good.
everything you're saying too. So my daughter's in 8th grade and she's got this project and they want them to something that's exciting and motivating them, but it motivates them enough to push them to the next level, to learn more about it. Like and this is really, I'm going to have them watch this episode, to be honest. So
Awesome.
thank you for that. Jane, he was sharing about the ice. She was asking about the ice. Costco is the best price for ice, by the way. I was craft service. I checked all the prices. That's the best one. So he'd fill his tank with what, 12 bags, you said?
Yeah,
Sometimes 10.
if I wanted to get to 30. And the good thing too is that, even here in Southern California with the weather the way it is, if you do that, it will stay cold for days. Like even
Yeah.
if it gets up to 45, it's still uncomfortable, and it
Yeah.
still provides the benefits of the process. So you can spend that $43 at Costco once and you can have days worth of benefits. And that's what
Yeah.
I do.
And it's there, there's little bathhouses now that try to do it and charge you up the wazoo to go sit in their ice. You might as well do it yourself.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's Tim Othman with his crack. When's the last time you saw something suspicious in the sky that you
Me?
could, yes, you had that you can recall? Because I haven't actively skywatched in a while, and
Well,
I've been
yeah.
a little disconnected. I'm trying to get
I'll,
myself back to that connection.
I'll tell you, there's two sort of answers to that, because a lot of the things I record and feature on the channel, I don't necessarily see because it's
Mm,
so fast. I find
mhm.
it after recording and just really, really scrutinizing
Slowing it
my
down.
footage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. But that said, I also had an experience last year that was so unnerving that I really struggled as to whether or not I was going to post the footage,
Mm.
because um, I saw something moving very slowly. And then once I pulled my phone out, it changed course and zipped up closer to me. And if you're not ready for something like that, at least me, it was unsettling,
Hmm.
because I was
Yeah.
like, balloons don't do that. I mean, it clearly wasn't a balloon. And
Hmm.
then to top it off, I recorded it for about 2 minutes, and then it just goes zoop, and went straight up in the sky and was gone.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, I felt, and I didn't think it through. I'm just saying, I literally felt in the moment, like, I don't know if this thing is going to take me, or I didn't know. It didn't feel safe. It wasn't
Okay.
necessarily, it wasn't super positive. It was unnerving. And
Okay.
so, but I mean, I haven't like shuddered and stayed indoors since then. I mean, it's part of life. It's whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the point, I guess, is that sometimes when I'm seeing things, it's not always like super warm and fuzzy. That
I
one
gotcha.
wasn't super fun.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I have to hear that once in a while because, yeah, sometimes I feel that it always is, and it's not sometimes. You got to be
Well,
mindful.
I just want to say too, real quick.
Uh-huh.
Somebody asked me about remote viewing and some of the other, because I do
Ah.
practice TK, and I've done that for a long time. Since the 90s, I've had a pinwheel and I've on and off, dabbled, and I've had pretty good success with it. But and I told this person, if you got into the ocean and you knew you were going to do something that was going to call something from the ocean up, but you didn't know what it was, would you do it?
Ah, good
And
call.
that's sort of how I feel about like CE5 and like engaging when
Right.
you're not sure what it is you're going to be engaging. And I cannot pretend like there are not stories out there of abductions and Whitley Strieber's of the world exist. So
Yeah.
maybe if I was a single guy with no kids, I might live a little more, like I used to bungee jump or ride a motorcycle. And then I got married and had kids, and it's like certain things need to stop.
Yeah. No,
And
I'm right
so,
there with you.
you
Yep.
know, I don't feel like we know enough that it's comfortable for me to be trying to call things in when I don't know what's going to show up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right there with you. That goes with me also with Conscious Life Expo. You never know what's going to show up there, cloaked
Yeah,
beans
no
and not.
kidding.
You got to be careful at some of those
That's funny.
places.
That's really funny.
I call it the Star Wars bar. I'm like, who's going to the Star Wars bar convention, with all the different beans and whoo. Anyway, and
Yeah,
then
little
one
Tim
last final
Tam.
thing, I guess, before we round it down here, can you share what kind of attorney you are, by chance? Like what you
Uh,
practice?
employment law.
Employment law. That's just good to know because for all community, back pocket, we know who to call if anybody
Yeah,
needs
yeah,
anything.
yeah. And so
Ah, that's a big one for LA, huh?
yeah,
Mm.
it is. And, there's some, crossover with this field and some of that because, when when an employee gets injured or feels harassed or whatever, and then that employer or their insurance carrier need representation, then I might be somebody they hire or my law firm. And those employers also include defense contractors.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
what I'm saying is that if somebody gets hurt or injured working, you know, up in the high desert doing something, uh,
I see what you're
they might,
putting down.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so, I'm treading lightly for obvious reasons, and
Sure.
I like to keep my career in this separate, but I'm just saying
Gotcha.
there is some overlap, which is kind of interesting sometimes.
That's very interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Say no more, but I see what you're putting
Yeah.
down.
Hey, can I ask you a
Well,
question before we
yeah,
sign off?
please.
When you mentioned sky watching, what is it that determines when you do it, and do you have any particular method for doing it?
I don't. I know one of my favorite ones was like 20 just here. And when I was in Van Nuys Lake Balboa area. So
Mhm.
I remember just be making a decision that day, actually within an hour of that time. I should preface this for a couple of days. I've been really getting back to my light body, just really taking care of myself. And I'm like, I want to go back to these experiences. I was surrounding myself with that kind of community. I'm like, show me where you are again. Because I did have some encounters before and I kept calling it in. Well, this particular night, I made a very big decision, a decision that weighed on me a long time, something that I felt I chose myself. I put myself out there first. I chose my family. I did something that really lightened my heart. And I was like tears of happiness. Like I was in a good mood of like, yeah, I did that. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And so I was sitting in the back, just chilling in my back patio. And this little light comes around and comes, but it goes like in an L shape because I see it lights all the time around that area. It's Van Nuys Airport. So I'm like, whatever. But it is, it wasn't a particular flight pattern. It was enough to distract me. And I saw it do a quick beeline right above me. And then it danced and it danced. And I had made it memory recall of my mom with the same visual when I was young, having these experiences when I was young, the dancing. And I felt the connection. I felt this is a reward. Congratulations. You're choosing you. You're making a step towards just, being your best self, I guess. And I was having this super teary, like euphoric, like ecstasy days, feeling all the good things. And I'm like, there's no way I kept saying, is this you? Is this that? Is this what it is? And a dance would happen, or is it a drone? And then it would just be still. And then I'm like, no, is this happening? And then it was moving all around.
Wow.
We had a drone. It was a no-fly zone because of the airport. You couldn't get that off the ground. It would power down. So I was having this awesome moment. And I just feel like it was for me. And then, of course, I went down to look for my phone to take a picture, and then it was totally gone. And I could get good aerial. I could see like not the San Gabriel, but up by Silmar all the way to the Hollywood Hills. I could see, and I'm like, what was that? And I just had this laughable moment of like, okay, I get it. That was just for me.
Yeah.
So anything different I did, it was my state of consciousness. It's where I was at. And I've had a time we moved up here, kind of Santa Clarita Valley now, and with the kids, really lower light pollution up here. We're kind of on the outskirts, and we were just chatting, talking about stuff. So I brought the kids out. I'm like, let's just try. Let's just see. Let's just say, hey, got any visuals for us? You got anything fun to show us? And again, I remember hearing, maybe it was the interview you guys did, but I remember Gerald and Jane talking about it, about a group of people could be out, but only two see. They're all seeing at the same spot, but only two can see it. And I feel that's a vibrational connection. It's just your state of being. So I always thought I saw something, and I have the bad eyes in the family. My kids didn't see anything. So calling on that, it's usually me asking, hey, can you show yourself? Can I connect again? Or I just ask for it, I guess, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I've been very disconnected. I've been very much in my 3D world lately. I've been, got my shield up really for my family lately. And I've been so heavily involved with a lot of UFO communities that a few times, more than not, I didn't feel safe. And things would happen to the family. So I did disconnect and pull away for a little while. So, making those connections again would be possible if I'm in the right state of mind. I won't try if I'm not, I feel. Yeah, but that's just, does that answer?
No, it does. And I appreciate you sharing that. And it resonates with me too for two purposes. The first, like that notion of some people seeing it and other people not, and that's, you hear that too. There's crossover in the cryptid world. You tend to hear that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I think, the frequency or the how and where we're vibrating really plays a big role. And that leads me to the second point, which is Bigfoot Dwarf and Sky's the Limit Smoke Shop.
Yes.
I mean, the things that he sees and is able to capture, it's, to me, I mean, I'm almost convinced that they are there for him.
I am too. I'm 100, and I felt it there. I've been, maybe we should meet up there sometime. I feel it too. And then hearing his story and his backstory, escaping to the woods, getting regenerated,
Right.
I feel like there's that divine protection in a way too. Like they know he's curious, but he's safe. And so I think they're safely giving him these glimpses. That's just my opinion, but
I agree.
I'm with you on that.
And he's not making a mockery of I mean, he's so genuine.
Yes. And gentle.
Yeah. And I feel, and I've told him, like I feel like his vibration is the reason he's able to capture those things and the reasons why they're there. Yeah. And I think it's really, really neat. I think if scientists were to be inclined to investigate, they would do well to start with him I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a Chris Bledsoe in a way where there's something about him. It's not the area, it's him.
It's not the area, it's him. And he's
And
needed in that area. Like him
yeah,
being there is needed in that area. So it's
yeah,
all,
no,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm all about that. I actually went to a place, Pacific Northwest, that's known for the sky watching, and you stay there and you have experiences. And it was a case in point of being there, even with night vision goggles, seeing a lot of stuff, seeing, and someone right next to me is not. And but they complained the whole time. They were complaining about the food. They were complaining about their back. They were like victim-y. And I'm like, I know why you're not saying nothing, but I'm not gonna say nothing. I don't know who you are. But you could tell. It's like,
That's
oh
funny.
yeah. And that's when I feel like it's a lot of a gift. It's like, yeah, we got you. And it is a resonance. Like there's a connected resonance that's like my mom used to say that when I was young. I have very similar situation with parents that didn't shush me when I questioned things. In fact, they would say, yeah, there's multidimensional energies around, and you know, how you interact with it is really going to depict who you are as how you are as a person will depict how you interact with it. But she would say it took over her body. But my dad would abuse alcohol and things and abuse things. So he'd be sitting right next to her and be knocked out. It wasn't an experience for him. Not knocked out
Right.
from the substances, but in the moment he'd be filming or something, and then he'd just be, it's not for him. She'd have this beautiful encounter, and then, it would go away and she'd be crying tears of happiness. And then he'd be like, so when are we going to see anything? And she's like, it was just here. You missed it. He's like, I didn't see
Yeah.
anything. So you're like, oh, it wasn't for him. Oh, here's Bigfoot Dwarf. He's there. Oh,
Hey, buddy.
yeah, you're a special kind of fella, I have to tell you.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I did not expect that to hit 2 hours, Mr. John, but that's pretty awesome. Thank you
Cool.
for engaging me for such a long, beautiful episode, and for sharing a little bit more about yourself. And
Mm,
I hope friends in the community, it's fun to hear backstories about all of these pals we make in these chats, these community chats, the person behind the handle, really. So
right,
thank
right.
you for sharing. And it is incredibly inspirational. It truly is mind over matter. And your
Mm.
story and your journey of taking yourself from a sedentary lifestyle into this can-do solution-based guy is um I don't think anyone can get tired of hearing a beautiful story like that. So thank you
Well,
for sharing all that.
thank you for having me. Thanks for indulging me with the photos and the videos. Like we talked offline, I felt like if people can see some of the evidence of the things I say, maybe it will lend a little more credence and maybe cause somebody to be like, I can give this a shot, or I can,
Ah,
whatever that
helping.
looks like for them.
Yeah,
So thank you
yeah.
so much for having me. It's been a blast. I enjoy
Yay.
your platform, your show, your vibe, everything about you. I'm all about it. And I feel very fortunate that you asked me on. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Hi, Trevor.
Mhm.
Then hello to the replay crew. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you up with what's next. Lawrence and I will not be on tomorrow night, but I might jump on myself and share some more community chit chat. So we'll do that. So thank you. Hang on one second, John, and we'll say
Okay.
goodbye to everybody. Goodbye to the chat. Thank you guys for being here. You
Bye,
guys are
chat.
lovely as can be. Thank you.